I grew up in a poor country, and I watched my relatively wealthy family become poorer and poorer and poorer, despite working harder and harder as their money disappeared with inflation. I came back to the UK, age 16, with my father's last £100 in the hope of a better life. So I have lived with the consequences of terrible governments that destroy lives, and I never, ever want that to happen here.
Kemi Badenoch, the UK Conservative Party leader, making her first speech of the year 2025. She's right again. What inflation has done to the average Nigerian worker is unimaginable. This is the main reason many people are migrating to foreign countries. They want to escape that inflation. They want to escape that poverty, because savings cannot save you, because they have wiped the value of the savings. The only way a worker can survive is to save, not just in Nigeria, everywhere. If you don't save, you can't afford a home, you can't afford a car, you can virtually afford nothing. You must save. You can never spend everything you earn as salaries. So an average worker in Nigeria must at least spend what he can and save what he can. What if you're trying to buy a home? You're trying to get on that property ladder. You've been contributing your savings. You've been saving some money from your salaries. And as at 2022, you had about 5 million naira in savings. You've been working out, how am I going to buy land? How am I going to start building the project? Where am I going to buy the land? Because most lands in many cities are above 20 million or 30 million a plot. 5 million is still not enough to buy around the city center. So all these calculations are going on in your mind, and all of a sudden, the naira is devalued. Boom! And suddenly that 5 million naira that took you about 5 years or more to save, it suddenly has the value of about 2 or 1 million naira. Where are you going to start? You see, when people talk about the suffering and hardship under the current administration, they mostly talk about the high cost of living, the high cost of products in the market, how the price of goods have jumped over the years. Some even go as far as comparing 2015 prices to 2025 prices, not just under this administration, how it literally jumped more than 200%. And when they make the comparison of the 2015 prices, they always cite this sachet Milo that Buhari used to campaign to show that he's a simple man, that he drinks the kind of tea an ordinary person drinks. When Buhari took this photo, it was sold for 20 naira per sachet. Today, 2025, it's being sold for 250 naira per sachet. That shows you the massive jump. And no salary earner in Nigeria received the equivalent increase in his salary in the same period. What it means is that if the price of goods increased by 300%, the expenditure of an average worker, his transportation expenses, his feeding, his rent, and every other expenditure, they increased and jumped by over 300%. In order to survive the situation, the massive inflation, he needs to receive a 300 increase in his salary in order to stay afloat. If he doesn't receive that, he's now being plunged into poverty. He's now practically working for nothing. Because before the inflation jump, maybe he was spending about 60% of his salary on general expenses. So the rest 40 is able to save it every month for the future. Maybe he's saving it for a home or a car, whatever project he has in mind. But after a jump in inflation by over 300%, his salary alone will no longer be able to take care of his monthly expenditure. So whatever savings he used to have, he will rely on the savings he'll be drawing from there to supplement his salary and monthly expenditure, which means that he will be going down, down, down. He can never run afloat. It's like someone swimming and is about to drown. All the time he tries to push his head above the water and the water suddenly rises again. The cycle continues. So you can see the way many people lost their savings. They can't have money in the bank while they starve. They can't be watching their kids starve or not go to school when they have money in the bank. So they are forced to dip their hands in their savings. The project they were saving that money for can no longer be achieved. All these lead to economic depression. Because imagine thousands of people saving to build homes and they hit the market and start building the same time. It will create massive employment. No one eats the money raw. If a mason earns the money, a carpenter earns his salary, he will go to the market and spend it, and the chain reaction continues. So this one is just one part of how people lost their savings. Some even borrow money. They've spent all their savings, they now resort to borrowing. They borrow from this app. Next month, they borrow from another app to repay the other one. The cycle never ends. Now look at this scenario. The people that lost their savings based on the devaluation of the naira. Think of someone that is living abroad, a Nigerian that is working hard. He's working towards a project in Nigeria. He wants to build a duplex or maybe an apartment block, 2-story building or something like that. And since he started the savings, the contractor that was supposed to build the project for him gave him a budget of say 50 million naira to build a duplex for him. Now every month he sends some money to Nigeria and instructs his relatives to exchange that money to naira. After a few years, he has saved a few millions and is now ready to start the project. But all of a sudden, the naira is devalued. Boom! It loses value by about 200 or 300%. And immediately it hits the price of goods in the market, which will now affect the overall budget for the duplex he wants to build. A duplex that would have cost him 50 million naira when he started out, or maybe mid-year when he started the savings. But now that naira has been devalued, the contractor suddenly tells him that to construct the building now will cost him double of the amount he told him a few years ago. Now the person is confused. He will be saying, what will I do now? I've been saving this money for many years. I've been depriving myself of the good life in order to build this project. What am I going to do now? Maybe all the money is sent in foreign currency totals about $20,000. Assuming he's going to change his mind about the building project, he's saying that how am I sure that naira will not be devalued if I work towards saving more money in order to build the project? If I save again, maybe in 2 years the naira will be devalued and I will be forced to save again in order to meet up the new budget. When will it stop? He can just say, no, I'm no longer interested in building a project. Let me take back my money and use that money as an advance for a home mortgage in my country of residence in Europe. After all, the economy of my country of residence is more stable. I wouldn't have to deal with high inflation like in Nigeria. Let me just take this money back. There's one problem here. The money he saved over the years is no longer equivalent to the $20,000 he sent to Nigeria over the years. Remember, he has already converted it to naira. So this is an analogy, but it is real. This is the main reason many multinationals left Nigeria. They are foreign companies and they always repatriate their profits to their home country. Imagine before the devaluation, most of them were repatriating maybe $10 million, $20 million. And after the devaluation, which caused a drop in purchasing power, so they weren't making as much sales as they used to make before the naira devaluation. So this reduced their revenue, and instead of now repatriating an equivalent of $20 million back to their country, they are now repatriating about $2 million or $5 million. So it didn't make sense to them to continue doing business in Nigeria, to continue manufacturing. They saw it as a complete waste of time. Better manufacture elsewhere, where the costs are lower and where more profits can be made, and now export it to Nigeria, where any amount of money they make, the most important thing now is that they are making more profits, because when you are selling somewhere, you are not expending money on manufacturing, providing your own electricity, water, and other infrastructure. You spend less when you import or export and just make sales. So it is better for them to operate that way, while it is not good for Nigerians because they lost jobs. Most of these companies combined had about 5,000 or 10,000 workers, not to talk of the secondary employment they created. So it's very easy for supporters of the current administration to keep defending the failed policies. But the reality is, every one of us, including them, suffered and continues to suffer the effects of the devaluation. They're always quick to say that naira is now exchanging at the right value, that it was overvalued before, without mentioning that Nigeria is an import-dependent economy. Once you're import-dependent, you must use naira to buy foreign exchange in order to import goods. People might argue that Nigeria no longer has the capability to support a lower exchange rate because of the drop in revenue by NNPC. But what have the government done to increase the revenue of NNPC back to about $3 billion they used to deposit at the central bank in 2015. From $3 billion monthly over a decade ago down to a paltry $200 or $300 million monthly. So what have they done to increase the revenue back to what it was in order to make sure that we are able to support that lower exchange rate? They can't eat their cake and have it. If the government fails to invest in infrastructure that will make local manufacturing attractive and competitive to imports, no one will ever invest in serious manufacturing in Nigeria because it doesn't make any sense. They don't run a charity when people will make better profit when they import. Who is going to suffer and provide his own infrastructure, electricity, water, even build roads that lead to his factory in order to start manufacturing in Nigeria? At the end of the day, with all the taxes and everything, you might still not turn a profit compared to someone that is importing. So they can't be expecting Nigerians to start manufacturing on their own without the needed infrastructure in order to become productive, to improve the value of the naira, to reduce the dependence on foreign exchange, when their major role is to provide that infrastructure. They are leaving it for private individuals to do that for them while they are busy traveling around the world buying foreign-made equipment, despite the fact that there are locally made alternatives like cars. All the time you see budgets. Most of the cars in the budgets are foreign-made cars, Toyota Land Cruisers, Lexus Jeeps, and many others. But they know what they are doing. The truth is, Nigerian government doesn't even need to pay any petrol subsidy. All they need to do is to allocate between 300 to 400,000 barrels per day of crude oil to local refineries. Yes, it's our natural resource. Why can't Nigerians enjoy their natural resource, their God-given natural resource? Or is it meant for elites alone? It doesn't make any sense. Any country will always use their advantage, what they have, to better others, to be more competitive than others. Are you trying to say that the United States will allow their countrymen to buy petrol at a high cost despite the fact that they have crude oil in their country? No, they will never do that. So why is it different in Nigeria? They can say, okay, all these refineries, just recover the cost of refining and we just sell maybe at 300 naira per liter. They can run it like that for like 20 years so that Nigerians will use that to rebuild and recover. Before they know it, more wealth will be created, many people will be prosperous, and they will be able to afford petrol at even 1,000 naira per liter. Gradually, we start returning all the taxes, and the country and everyone will be better for it. Thanks for watching.